everybody. I'm Dr. Cindy, a chiropractic internist and nutritionist, and your host of the Positively Altered podcast, where we like to have raw, transparent, honest conversations with absolutely no filter. Sometimes they get a little weird and sometimes they don't. We're going to see how today's episode goes. But I want to give you a little heads up. This one is going to be amazing, and I'm going to tell you why. We're going to talk to my next guest, who I'm going to hold on to introduce you to because I want to share with you the story to get you inspired first. He had a 25-year career in the military. And when I just think about that, I think about strength and fortitude and resilience and all of these amazing attributes, which I guarantee he's going to demonstrate. But sometimes we don't think about how sometimes then something happens we didn't expect. And sometimes in that one thing we didn't expect, we actually get more news that we didn't expect. And then we got to figure out how to turn on all of that skill set that we learned, not only in the military, but in life, and how to get through it. And this story is absolutely amazing. I'm really excited to hear it firsthand myself. So sit tight, grab a warm blanket if it's cold, throw on the air if you're a little hot, but don't go anywhere. We've got to take a quick listen to our sponsors, and then I'm going to come right back and introduce you to today's guest.
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? Welcome back. I'm glad you're still here because this guest really doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway so that we can prep him for the story. 25-year career military. Following a car accident, doctors had discovered he had a brain tumor, which is not what you typically expect to hear after a car accident. And my guest today, Scot Heathman, had to figure out how to overcome that adversity. And he did. So we're going to hear about it today. But maybe even more importantly than walking through that journey, he now took that experience and gets to spend time teaching people how to command with courage. And I love that. And I'm sure that's part of the military background, which is where we came up with that. So let's take some time to realize how important these journeys are and hear Scot's story. Scot, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here, Dr. Cindy. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking. Because, the alternative kind of stinks.
It does. Yeah.
And I've had the alternative, as you have. So, I'm going to stick with fantastic, I think, for a few more decades, see how it goes.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's a lot more to the story, but I really wanted you to share it in the way that's near and dear to your heart. So where should we start with this journey that led you on the path?
Wow. Yeah. When I think about my career, it's like those 25 years is a blur. I mean, it really is. All my life, I wanted to fly airplanes. So that's why I got into the Air Force to begin with. And the Air Force has been, my family, my community for, like you said, over 25 years. But it was funny that you get this, how unexpected things will happen in these interesting lives we lead. Always at a time that you don't expect it, you probably don't want it, not of your choosing. It's just the way it is. And for us, and I say us because this was a family journey. My wife and I were actually on our way to a holiday party just before Christmas in 2018, and we were living in Spokane, Washington. I was the deputy commander of Fairchild Air Force Base at that time. And we come up to a stoplight, and I could see a set of headlights in the rearview mirror coming at us really fast, way too fast in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, especially with slick roads and at night. And then I saw those headlights disappear, and I braced for impact. And this car slammed into us. What happened after that was pretty typical of a car accident. We were able to get the car over and check on everybody, and I had a little bit of a whiplash, and they did call the ambulance and everything and checked me out, and I felt okay, but I knew I had a little bit of a neck injury. And
Mhm.
a few days later, I had gone in for an MRI to take a look at this thing. Actually,
Because
it's
of the
probably about a
neck
week and a
pain,
half later.
right?
What's that?
Because of the neck pain,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was an active pilot, like I said at the time. And so, I went in to see the flight docs and I told them what happened. They said, well, let's get some x-rays. Let's get an MRI. Let's just see that, let's ensure everything's good. Because I was feeling pretty good. And about a week later, because we had the holiday and things were kind of delayed getting back to me and all that, they had reached out, and it's early, a couple days after New Year's, and they reached out and they said, the flight doc said, hey, sir, do you know you have a brain tumor? And I was like,
Wow.
um, no, is that serious? And I just flown the day before, and I'm like, is that going to affect my flying career? And he said, yes, you are at this moment basically placed on a status that we call uh, DNIF status, duty not involving flying.
Okay.
And so they put the stop on me there, and immediately all kinds of things start going into motion, right? All kinds of specialist visits, more MRIs, neurosurgeons, neurology, oncology, you name it. And through that, they found about a walnut size meningioma. So on the meninges layer of the brain, the outer layer of the
Mhm.
brain, but it was tucked up underneath my brainstem. It was actually deforming the brainstem, which looks nice and round when you look down on an MRI, but it was actually deformed a little bit. And the neurosurgeon was asking me all kinds of questions. He's like, I cannot believe that you're not feeling any effects from this. And I said, unless I'm a boiling frog and it's been so subtle that I just don't know it. Other than that, I don't know. And to this day, I still don't know when and where it started, how long it was even in my body, in my head.
So in a weird way, and this is gonna sound a little ridiculous, right? But in a weird way, the car accident was almost a gift.
Oh, heck yeah. I've even wrote about that a few times that, yeah, I was ticked off about this car accident when it happened, but yeah, it was a gift. It saved my life. Um,
Mhm.
just having that awareness and understanding, what we're dealing with at that point in time was a gift, because things didn't move quickly from we found it, let's go to surgery, or we found it, let's go to radiation. Like that's not how it works in most cases. There is some time to kind of talk and see what we're dealing with, and again, what is the right procedure? Is it surgery? Is it gamma knife radiation? Is it a fractionated radiation? What are we dealing with? I don't know if it's cancerous or not, because we
Okay.
we don't we can't get in there quite yet, right? So we went through all the options, and I elected that when the time came, I was going to go through surgery because at that time I was 45 years old. This was almost 5 years ago. I'll be 50 next month. And so all this is happening at the same time. And I had to move that summer. So, it's great to have all these awesome professionals around you, but then to move to, halfway across the country to a new area, you have to reset up all that stuff. New specialist, new neurosurgeon. But luckily, the neurosurgeon I was working with in Spokane, he had a good friend that he went through school with and said, "Hey, call this doctor in St. Louis.
Okay.
He's one of the best. See if he's willing to take you in." And he did. And, I told him my story, gave him a call, and he took me in as a patient. And then I was set up with the same type of team system around me, support system. But again, it was kind of like, let's just wait and see. This thing is
Okay.
kind of growing, but it's growing slowly.
Okay.
And
So now what happens? So you have this thing in your head that doesn't
yep,
belong there. How I guess two questions. One, how do you deal with that knowing it's in there? Because I would be like, get it out, right? Like I don't want it in there. Get it out. So
yeah.
and you're watching and you're waiting, right? For I assume something terrible to happen. So how do you deal with that emotionally? And then what did happen? What was the next stage?
You know, I I've been asked this a couple times, and it's kind of hard to explain. I think the best advice my doctor told me was, don't Google this. Like, stay off the internet, right?
Right, right.
And I will say, I think a little bit of me being naive to what this is and how serious this is actually kind of helped, because I didn't start to what if everything.
Good.
First and foremost, and you've said this and you've written about this, I can't control it. Like, it's going to do what it needs to do. And so for me to expend all this energy in what if, I'm going to get nowhere, and I'm just going to be spinning my wheels in the mud. And I still had a job to do. So I was a deputy commander for the first 6 months of the year in 2019. And then I took command of Scott Air Force Base, which is located just east of St. Louis. So now I'm in command of a giant Air Force base, right?
That was nice that they named it after you too. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, almost not quite spelled the same, but so I come to the new base, and I kind of took the same approach as I did at my last location. I didn't talk a lot about it. There was just a handful of people in the front office. My boss knew the base commander at Fairchild, and then when I became the commander, I didn't really talk to a lot of people about it because it really wasn't affecting me at this point in time. And I didn't want that to be a distraction to what we're doing at the base, the missions that we're involved in and things like that. I thought at some point in time, I will have a discussion, or I'll relay a message, but now is not the right time. And I really thought a lot about how I would communicate this to my team, because I've known people that have talked a whole bunch about it, and it did become a distraction. I've known other leaders, they didn't, and they were able to manage through some of these things.
Mhm.
And so I took that approach until things got a little bit worse. And about 6 months later, in January of 2020, so now we've watched this thing for almost a full year. Um, I
Okay.
noticed my face going numb, and I had a little bit of a limp on my left side. And somebody pointed it out, somebody in my front office, and they asked me, did you injure yourself? And I said, no. And they're like, well, you're kind of walking with a little bit of a limp. And I didn't really notice it.
Okay.
And so I knew I needed to call the neurosurgeon and tell him, I think things are happening.
Mhm.
So, and he's like, yep, let's go, let's get you scheduled for surgery. So in less than about a month, I was scheduled for surgery on February 13th of 2020. And
Okay.
so notice that year and the month. I mean, we
Right.
are a year out from, or a month out from a lot of crazy things happening in this world, right?
Right.
So on an Air Force installation or any military hierarchy, when the leader goes down, there's always somebody right behind you to take your place. And that's
Okay.
essentially what happened. Stepped out of my job. My deputy took over. I went into about a 10-hour surgery. And when I woke up, I couldn't hear. I was completely deaf on this side. I couldn't see. I had really bad double vision.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't see anything. I couldn't obviously walk. I had a hard time talking. It just felt like things weren't working.
So you came out
Uh,
worse than you went in.
oh yeah, yeah. And some of the things that they talked to me about were, I might lose a little bit of hearing, maybe 30-40%. It ended up being permanent. I still to this day can't hear. It's permanent hearing loss in that side.
Okay.
The vision came back. I obviously got to walk in again, but yeah, the basics which we all take for granted weren't there, and
Mhm.
I didn't know how long any of this was going to last, like my eyesight or anything. So it's scary when you wake up and you're like, whoa, that we didn't talk about all this,
Right. Right.
So now what do you do?
So
And
what did you do?
well, I sat in the hospital for a couple days, uh, 3 days. I got home after 3 days after surgery, and I thought that was pretty good because they told me I was going to be there probably a week or so. Um, I had a walker. Uh, I hated the car ride home. It was miserable because the world was just bouncing all around, and you know, it wasn't painful though. I didn't have headaches. I didn't have a lot of pain from the surgery, but the vestibular issues I had were overwhelming, and
Okay.
everything seemed to be more overwhelming. I think with a traumatic brain injury, you don't realize how sensitive that instrument is in your head and
Mm-hmm.
all the information it takes in. It was a little bit overwhelming just to watch the cars on the road. I remember just closing my eyes, but even that was difficult because the vestibular issues got worse. As you're moving and we're going on the highway and turning, and it was awful. But once I got home and settled in, I started to really think about now what what now? And it's absolutely normal. And I had these bouts of this isn't fair. This shouldn't be happening. Right. I mean,
Mm-hmm. It's
perfectly
normal
normal.
to feel that way.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think the one thing I kept telling myself is I can't play this. I can't play the victim here
Mm-hmm.
because again, I didn't choose any of this. This just happened. So let's not worry about what I can't control and try to figure out what I can control. So I think the really most important first step for me was just accepting and
Okay.
acknowledging, like, this is what happened. This is where I'm at today. Okay.
Sure.
And then I started to think about what kind of things could I do, or what would it take to get me to what I envisioned was my ideal self, which was me walking back into work, and that's my happy place, right?
Okay.
Um, I couldn't read it unless I held a book up like this, then I could see straight. So I started reading this book, and this is Marcus Aurelius's Meditations.
Uh-huh.
And I'm a bit of a stoic, and I started diving back into that book. I've read this book many, many times. And I came to a passage in there where he talked about how nothing happens to anyone that they can't endure. And I
Mm-hmm.
started thinking about that, like, I didn't wish this upon myself. Nobody would wish this upon themselves, but I can figure out a way through this.
Mm-hmm.
Or my support system, we could all work together to figure out a way through this. And I couldn't walk, so I said, you know what I can do? I can get in a walker though, and go to the end of the block, end of the street. And if I'm tired after that, I'll take a nap.
Right.
So I'll do the Mr. Fredrickson and walk down, with the tennis balls and everything on the
Uh-huh.
bottom of the walker. And I just started doing that. I could choose whether I wanted to do my therapy. They highly suggest you do your therapy, right? Your
Right.
occupational, your physical therapy and my speech therapy. But, you could choose not to do that. But that was a path I wasn't going to go down. I was going to do my therapy, and I did that, 3 days a week, sometimes 2 therapy sessions per day. 3 became a lot, and
Okay.
so we just said, let's just do 2 out of the 3. We'll alternate, every second day. And when you know it, like after about a month, I was asking my wife if I could ride my bike, and she's like,
Okay.
"No, no flipping way," you
Yeah.
know? So, but I was to the point where I was walking on my own and without a cane, without the walker, going to therapy still, meeting some of my, fellow leadership was stopping by and,
Okay.
filling me up with positivity. Um, I got accused of still smiling too much. They're like, "How in the world are you smiling through this?" I'm like, I didn't ask for Toby. And they said, "Well, wait a second. Who's Toby?" I said, "Well, that's Toby the tumor. That's Toby the tumor." And they're like, "You named it?" And I said, "Yeah." And I named it Toby. If you've ever seen the show The Office,
Oh,
the
sure.
HR rep is named Toby, and Michael Scott hates Toby. He wants him gone. And I said, "You know what? This is my Toby. I might as well have a relationship with this and have some fun and have some humor, because without that humor in my life, I'm going to go crazy."
It's so true. I walked through Hodgkin's lymphoma 10 years ago, and I used to think of the
Mhm.
lesions in my body as time capsules, and I was gonna bury them. I was gonna put them away, and maybe I could
Yeah.
revisit it later, although I don't really want to. And I just pictured these time capsules exploding every time I went to the gym and, beating them up and pushing them out. And I
Yeah.
think acknowledgement of some of this has a lot of value to move through it, right? Versus the denial of it's not real. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And naming it is, a good way to acknowledge it and still not give it the power that it should have, right?
Yeah, I think it was a healthy alternative for me. It may not be for everybody,
Right.
but
Right.
for me, humor is important in my life. It's been a big part of my life. I'm like, why be something I'm not? I can choose still to be this way.
Right.
So I think life, after any sort of adversity, whether you lose a loved one or a pet, or maybe you didn't get picked in kickball, first, whatever the adversity is, I really do think it's important that you look at the perspective you're dealing with internally first, not the, well, somebody did this to me, or God did this to me, or this spiritual high power did this to me. It's, in my humble opinion, it's just a path. And now we'll figure out how to navigate this one. And I'm good at navigating. I'm a pilot. I should figure
Right.
out how, I
Right.
should know how to do this.
Right,
So
I would hope so, right? So
yeah.
so that warrants a really important question. How much of your military training background do you think really played a role in your attitude and the way you looked at this? Or are you just wired this way anyway?
I do think, from a resilient standpoint, we've certainly I personally have been in many, many crisis situations, whether it be conflicts or emergencies in an airplane, issues we've dealt with on the ground, especially issues as a commander of a base. I mean, I've dealt with, suicide. I've dealt with uh, domestic violence on a base. I've dealt with floods. I've dealt with, all kinds of emergencies that pop up on a base. And again, I think an important first step in all of that is this acknowledgement and acceptance that, okay, this is actually happening. There's no mystery why the first step in the 12-step process of almost every program out there is, "Hi, my name is Scott and I have a problem," or "Hi, my name is Scott, I have a brain tumor."
Mhm.
Okay, because I think a lot of times we suppress that through denial. We're like, "Well, this is the end." No, it's not. I'm 45. Like, this is the beginning, So I got a lot of time left. And I've known much younger people that have dealt with some pretty astonishing things, who have chose to say, this is not the end,
Right.
you know?
Right. It's
Um,
part of the journey.
but yeah, and I will owe quite a bit, I think, to the military mindset at times, because I think we're always looking for ways out of the chaos. Nothing ever goes according to plan, no matter how much planning and training we do. Um,
Okay.
so you have to figure out, well, how do you adapt and overcome this or that, because what you thought the winds were going to be up at 30,000 feet aren't quite like them now. And now, instead of having a nice tailwind, you actually have a headwind, and now you don't have enough potential fuel in your planning factors to maybe make the location you were going to, I got to stop short somewhere now,
Right.
or get an air refueling somewhere, you know? So I do owe that. But I will say, I think it's also because of, or I think it's through experiences as well. Like, I
Okay.
don't think you gain resilience unless you go through adversity to begin with. So if you look at it as a gift, you are building the skill set necessary to navigate future obstacles, I believe.
So I have a 22-year-old daughter who is a pilot, and
Okay.
she couldn't go into the Air Force because she's 5'2". You guys wouldn't take her. She's too short because she sits on the little booster seat in her, in her plane to see over the instruments.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I remember she stepped foot into a plane when she was 16 years old. And we showed up, and her instructor, Jake, who I'd met for the first time, looked at her and said, "Do you want to fly an airplane?" And I almost threw up when he said that to her. I'm like, doesn't she have to read a manual or prepare or like learn what like what's a yoke, right? And I've never flown a
Yeah.
plane, so I don't know anything. And he goes, no. We learn how to fly a plane by getting into the plane. And now you
Hmm.
fast forward, and there's a reason I'm sharing this story, but now you fast forward, and she winds up having this great mentor who works for American Airlines. His name is Brent. And I'm telling him how I'm nervous and all the stories about her solos and, again, wanting to throw up numerous times as her mother, not only by writing the check, but by seeing her fly an airplane. And he says, we train our entire careers for the one emergency we hope we never have. And it resonated greatly with me because, and she, loves flying, and I think she's crazy. And I think you probably have a bit of that too, right? Because I like to both my feet on the ground. But it's interesting because I love the idea of the concept of that career choice of flying an airplane to spend your whole life preparing for the one emergency you never have. Because, as in your case, and hopefully not in hers, but maybe that one emergency, the car accident, the brain tumor, the adversity, you now know how to get through that because that's where the training is. And it's a pretty
Yeah.
unique, right, perspective of we spend our lives hoping we never have to go through the adversity, but when we do, can we dig deep and get through it, in a very positive, productive way?
Yeah, it's so funny. Some folks have asked me like, "Oh, it's got to be great, to be up there amongst the clouds and this and that." I said, sometimes I don't even pay attention because we are thinking about, something going wrong. Every takeoff, I am always thinking about losing an engine, and not just at
Okay.
the end of the runway when we're up, but what if I lose it in the first 100 feet? What if I lose it in the first 500? What if I lose it in the first 2,000 feet? There's different procedures based on airspeed where you lose an engine. What do you do? And so I don't have time to think about having fun because I'm constantly thinking about, like you said, the worst thing happening right now and how am I going to deal with that? And that's an interesting point that you bring up. Maybe I'm so close to it all. I didn't really think about it in that sense that in a way that probably helped build up a level of resilience, at least to be able to accept and kind of deal with what was coming at me because it might be just because I was so naive about this brain tumor. I mean, I've never broken a bone. I've never been in my most serious surgery was wisdom teeth being taken out. I mean,
Okay.
so I haven't gone through anything from a medical standpoint that would have scared the heck out of me. Um, and it's interesting too that I wasn't scared going into the surgery. Even when they wheeled me back, there's a photo my wife has where I'm like, woohoo, I'm going back, 7 o'clock in the morning, we've been there for 2 hours getting ready. But I tell you, when I got in the room, it's like instantly fear came. Like
Hmm.
when you get into a giant surgery room, the one I saw, it was massive. And there's like 15 people in the room. I don't know any of them other than the doctor, the neurosurgeon, when he walked in the room. But um, I was scared. And I was like, okay, this just got real.
Hmm.
But I tell you, there was a resident there and she was reading off the chart and she's like, okay, this is Jeremiah Scott Heathman. He's a 45-year-old male, has, this meningioma. We're going to be operating on the right side. All of a sudden, all my fear went away because what it felt like to me was a pre-mission brief that we've done 1,000 times prior to flying. And I was like, she's reading a checklist. Like she's going off this line by line. because we would, before we fly, we're like, okay, here's today's date, here's the mission, here's where we're going, here's the weather, and it's just checklist, manifesto, a great book that I know a lot of the medical community goes through, and they've read this. And I'm like, she instantly put me at ease, and she has no idea that she did that for me.
How cool is that? And you had the right commander, right? You had the right commander and the right team.
Yes.
Who were trained to get you through the mission.
Yeah. And you got to put your faith in it at some point. I mean, look, there's a path. I'm either going to wake up or I'm not, or I'm going to wake up with all kinds of problems or just a few problems. But I just said, I'm just going to wake up, and we'll deal with what we've got. Once all this, comes to fruition, and I knew that I wasn't going to bounce back to the exact same way I was. So let's not worry about that. Let's bounce forward with what I got.
I love that.
And deal with that mindset.
So what's the prognosis now? The tumor's gone.
So yeah, I had 4 months recovery. I got back into my job on June 1st, 2020. Took command of the base again. I was like, hey, what's this pandemic thing everybody's talking about? Yeah, that was an interesting time.
That, Scott. That would have been good. I did just sleep through that and make up when it was over. But
yeah, they got most of the tumor. There was still a little bit left. It was a difficult place to operate, the location. And, there's a lot of nerves back there, and, without risking, more damage. We got the rest of it through radiation. So I did about 7 weeks of radiation treatments in the fall. And so every day, 5 days a week, I would drive to St. Louis, get my radiation treatments, and then drive home. And did that for about 7 weeks. So far, that's holding pretty well. And so now I'm on kind of an annual cycle. Matter of fact, I was in today, some fallout. I actually had some discs in my neck taken out in January, this past January. There's some degeneration going on, and there's potential that some of the radiation, did some more damage to that. So I've got all kinds of titanium in my neck, and that's looking good. We're just waiting for those bones to fuse. And then later in the end of the month, I'll do my annual MRI for the tumor. I have a lot of confidence things are still going to look well. Toby's not going to be looking good, which is A-okay with me. And, the best words that I can hope for every year is, we'll see you next year.
Right.
So,
which is great. Yeah. Do you miss flying?
I think I missed the fact. I was more frustrated the fact that somebody told me I couldn't fly than with the actual not flying, right?
Okay. If you made the decision, it would have been better, right?
Yeah, I think it would have been better. But I will say this, that was a dream I chased from age 3 when I saw Star Wars for the first time. Hence, you can kind of see the nerdery stuff I got in the background. I saw the Millennium Falcon. I'm like, I want to fly that. And I am so grateful I got to do that. And, I flew for 20 years without knowing that this was in my head. So I feel like it was a blessing that it happened more so towards the tail end of my career. And I kind of reached a point where flying wasn't my everyday thing. Like, I'm responsible for 14,000 people on this Air Force base. So flying's not my number one priority.
Okay.
It's a skill set that I maintained. But at that point, it was okay that I couldn't do that. And, I was able to kind of focus my efforts in other places on the base. But yeah, I get around airplanes still. And I'm like, I will say, like, when I go on an airline flight, I still dream about a pilot passing out and they call my name and I'll get in there,
Well, I hope it's not my daughter's flight that you're ever on that she passes out. So, somebody else maybe, but please let's not make it Reese. Okay.
Oh, I'll take care of everybody.
I know you will, but so maybe it's her captain that passes out, and then that's fine. You two can land the plane together. Oh my gosh. It's fascinating to me because one of the things that I've also tried to teach Reese, and she loves it. I mean, first of all, she's a terrible driver, which I hear most pilots are. So she belongs in the sky. There's nothing to hit up there, which is good. So we want her in the air and not on the ground. But I've also really been an advocate, especially with my kids and her in particular, is, flying is so dependent on medical, right? Like
it absolutely is.
At any given moment, something goes wrong and then you're grounded. So I've always taught her to have a backup plan, right? Just in case. Hopefully she never needs to have it, but a backup plan, and she's got one. You now have one too, right? So you're doing some new adventurous things, but on the ground. What are you doing? What's current? What jazzes
Yeah.
you?
So my second love that I started doing about 6 years ago, I started teaching emotional intelligence classes. As a leader, I was teaching the airmen at the base, and I was co-facilitating with a teammate, and I just fell in love with the curriculum and how important emotional intelligence is to any of us. Really important to leadership, whether you're a supervisor, manager, or leading an organization. It is the foundational skill set that all of us have. Oh, by the way, but we don't all know the ins and outs of it. And so by teaching this, I was teaching airmen, what is this thing called EQ? What does it entail? How can you grow in the various competencies, which you can, because it's one of those skills that is a neuroplastic skill, meaning it's not fixed like your IQ and your personality. You don't need to listen to the old guy or gal in the office saying, well, that's just the way I am. Nuh-uh, not good enough.
Okay.
You can actually work on this skill, and you can get better at being more self-aware, or managing your emotions, or managing those in others. But ultimately, you're getting after how to have more effective relationships with one another and increasing your level of performance. I love teaching and being in front and seeing those aha moments in others so much that I said, when I get out, my purpose is pretty clear, and it's elevating others. That's the name of my company. And I want to see aha moments in others. I don't like seeing people stuck. If I don't have the answer, I go seek it out, or we'll learn together. I'm not saying by any means I'm an expert, because I'm a constant learner. It's just leadership is a constant learning environment for me. And that's all I wanted to do when I got out, was how could I take all this, personal experiences, leadership training, things I've learned, things I've screwed up. How could I deliver this in a way that would support others? And said, you know what? The obvious thing was, go start a business, Scott. And that's what I did. It's scary. I had lots of job offers that I turned down. And people are like, what are you thinking? And like, I like this journey. It's hard. It's challenging. Entrepreneur life is not for everybody, but I enjoy it. And I think it's because I get to see the output of what I put in, and it's through the eyes of so many other people, whether it's coaching or facilitating leadership and development training, or consulting with an organization or a company, or it's speaking. So I do quite a few different things, but I think I like the customized work, and if you got a need, let's get after it. I don't want you to feel stuck.
So I think we're only stuck if we choose to be, right? We can stay
absolutely
there, but we don't have to be. So, maybe not a fair question, but in all the work of increasing emotional intelligence and becoming unstuck, is there one or two quick things you can put out there for people to start working on or think about to get unstuck if they're feeling that way?
Yeah. I will go back to perspective here, and I'm writing about this in a book I'm authoring right now. It should be out next quarter. Step one, and it's an acronym, I call it AIM. And I got this again from Marcus. Marcus Aurelius talks a lot about perspective and adjusting your aim. And I'm like, for whatever reason, that acronym that I kind of created, AIM, meant a few words. So the A is acknowledging and accepting. I think, again, you have to go back to step one. Let's just acknowledge that maybe I have a skill that I really do need to work on. Maybe I'm not a good listener. I'm not a good active listener. Maybe I'm not very empathetic with my teammates or my employees. I could maybe work on that. Or I'm not a great communicator. Just accept whatever it is. Because I think once you get to terms with your own personal acceptance of it, now you can start moving forward. Okay. The I in AIM to me is you got to illuminate a path.
Okay.
You can't just go from where I can't walk, can't see, can't hear, to get better. No. There's a path. Okay. And it's going to have a lot of little lily pads of waypoints that I'm going to have to navigate here. So let's look at what a potential path could be. And it may not be the path along the way as you start to execute, but let's just think about and visualize what's a good first step, what's a good second step, what's a good third step. And they don't have to be huge steps.
Okay.
It might be just make the bed today, right?
Right.
That might be a huge thing for some people.
Mhm.
But the last one, the letter M, is mobilize and move out. In the military, we don't when we're going off to war, we don't just get on an airplane and get on a ship, get on a train and go. We actually mobilize first. And what that means is, we get all of our equipment, we get all the right uniforms, we get all the right support, we get our life affairs in order. So just like going into the surgery, I made sure my will, as a matter of fact, my wife's will was up to date since we were doing
Mhm.
mine. We made sure that she knew where everything was at from a financial standpoint or how she could get her hands on it. I brought in a good friend who was going to be added support so that if something went wrong, my wife could kind of just deal with me, and this person could deal with all the other administration stuff that potentially could happen if things went south. Um, so again, we don't think a lot about, we have to gather the resources and the people and the support around us first, because if you don't have the positivity around you and you're going at this with maybe a slight case of negativity or a jaded outlook, you're not mobilized yet to take that first step, and that first step is can be a fearful one. So mobilize first, get your support in order, then move out. And so that's kind of how I think about it. I've never really put pen to paper until I started writing my book. And I'm like, I think that's the blueprint I have used most of my life, is those three areas. Just adjusting aim, but acknowledge and accept it, start thinking about a path, and then mobilize and move out.
Oh my
So,
gosh, that's great. Well, I'm going to acknowledge that we have to take a quick break. I'm going to illuminate everybody's life by bringing you back. We're going to mobilize really quickly and come back. And then you don't know this, Scott, but we've got a little plan for you. We're going to do some rapid fire questions if you're up to it. They have nothing to do
oh,
with anything we
fantastic.
talked about, but I just want to see what your answers are. So everybody
Yeah.
sit tight. We're going to take a quick moment to listen to our sponsors, and we're going to be back with Scot Heathman. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. Stop, hit that follow button now, and spread the love with Positively Altered. And we're back. And, maybe saying rapid fire questions to somebody who served 25 in the military might not be a good explanation, but we're going to go as rapid as we possibly can. You up for this, Scott?
Absolutely. Yeah,
All right.
absolutely. Let's go.
First question. You could make snow any color in the world except the color white that it is. What color do you pick?
Blue.
That is the most popular color. Why blue? I mean, we got oceans that are blue. You need snow to be blue too?
I don't
And
know.
when
I
you're
just,
flying now,
yeah,
even if it's commercial, how do you know what you're over if the snow is blue and the water's
yeah.
blue?
I don't know. I've always liked blue snow cones. And so maybe that's why I thought of that. It's,
Okay, and I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm always just curious as to the why behind the what. So,
yeah.
all right, good. Okay, you're going to be in the Olympics. You're going to win a gold medal. What sport are you going to participate in?
Ooh, the luge.
Really?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
a speed junkie, and that's a little bit dangerous.
Okay. And,
Um,
and that you can do by yourself or with a partner, right? If I'm
yeah,
correct.
yeah,
So are you
yeah.
going to do it alone, or do you want somebody to excel with you?
No, it's a solo luge. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to be able to be in that moment with myself,
Okay, all the gold's just for you. You're not sharing the medal with anybody. Okay,
Oh
good.
no.
I think that
No.
again, this is your journey, so you get to pick. One drink for the rest of your life. It can be sweet, sour, or strong. What's your thoughts?
So I have to pick sweet, sour, or strong. Like those are the three options,
Well,
or
I mean,
just
that's
pick
what
a
I gave
drink.
you, but I mean, we've had guests who are like, I don't like any of those choices and I'm picking something else. So I guess you can break the rules. Listen, you're
I'm gonna go
military.
with
You're in charge, man.
yeah. I'm gonna go with sweet, but I'm a whiskey drinker, so it kind of depends, you know. But I
Nice.
like sweet. I like
What's your
sweet.
favorite whiskey?
Stolock. Uh,
Okay.
I'm actually a part owner of it, of the distillery, so I have to
Oh,
say that. So,
oh, Scott, I'm expecting a holiday gift from you because I'm a whiskey drinker and I want a bottle. So you better make
oh,
sure
it's
you get my
fantastic.
address. All right. Because
Yeah,
I want that. And that could have been strong, couldn't it have been?
it could have, but there's a lot of good sweet tastes in it.
Okay.
It's all about the palate after it, you know, after you take a little bit in.
All
So,
right. So my choices really should have been sweet, strong, sour, or whiskey.
yeah.
Okay. We're going to change the question for the next episode. That's fair.
Okay.
All right. You're having lunch with, that one famous person, dead or alive, that you've always wanted to talk to. I could care less who they are. What are you eating?
What am I eating?
Yeah, I want to know
Hmm.
what the meal is that you're going to
Wow.
eat.
So here I was thinking about people.
I know. That's
Um,
why I play this game. It's, kind of silly.
I love Italian food. A good fettuccine alfredo with some really good chicken. It can really be any Italian food, but I'm picturing fettuccine alfredo.
And is there like a good glass of Chianti or no? There's still the whiskey.
I'm not a big wine drinker, so I would probably start with water, and then I would go to a whiskey
A
after
whiskey.
that.
That's the dessert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Awesome.
yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
All right. You can be a dancer, an actor, or a singer. What do you want to excel at?
Actor,
And what are you going to
actor.
star in? Oh, I know Star Wars. Is it Star
Well,
Wars?
I mean, if George Lucas called me today,
You're
I
in.
would be like that 3-year-old again. I would say it does not have to be sci-fi. I actually like a good sports story. Like,
Okay.
I was such a fan of like Field of Dreams or the Natural. I kind of like those. So I'm not just a sci-fi junkie.
All
So
right. Well, and if you're an actor, you get to change genres, I think, a little bit.
yeah.
So we can do the Star Wars with George Lucas, and then we can do the Field of Dreams. So, again,
Hmm.
this is all for fun. So we might as well
Yep.
put you in both. That's fair. All right. Last question. Most important. What was the best thing about doing the podcast today?
I gotta say, I really enjoyed just kind of laughing tonight. A lot of podcasts I've done, we get into some pretty serious topics, but having read through your book and seen the work that you do, I think you would agree. Well, don't let me put words in your mouth. Humor is an important thing in life, and being willing to laugh. And I just enjoyed the fact that we got to laugh quite a bit here. And it's not always easy telling the story,
Hmm.
and it's gotten easier with time. But there are some times where the emotions will sneak up on me, and I think it's just because of like a proud moment. But it is fun to kind of have some fun talking about these journeys because it isn't all doom and gloom. There's so much to look forward to, even in these bouts of adversity. There's so much to learn, and I'm still learning. So I think being able to tell that story with you and laugh a little bit, and hopefully maybe helping someone out there. I mean that's the real goodness in all this. So
Yep. It's why we continue to be vulnerable, isn't
yeah,
it? Share and
absolutely.
make a difference. I love it. All right. So you've got a book that's going to be coming out. What's the title so we know how to find it?
I do. It's going to be called Command with Courage, Elevating Beyond Adversity. And I am hoping to have this thing out first quarter next year. So it's on me. I got to get this manuscript done.
All right.
So
So when it comes out, even if we come out first, we're going to make sure there's a link to the book so that people know how to find it. All right.
I
So
appreciate that.
make sure you get that to us. And I'm excited to read it. And how do we find you, follow you, see what's next?
Yeah. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, it's Jeremiah Scott with one T, Heathman. And if you want to look me up on my website, it's elevatingOthersLLC.com.
I love it. Scott, thank you so much for sharing your story. My favorite part was finding somebody to enjoy being vulnerable with because it is hard and not everybody's always accepting of that. And I appreciate your story and your willingness to let me share little pieces of mine as we talk together. And it's really been a joy and a pleasure. So thank you. If
Yeah,
you want to
thank
learn more
you.
about me, you can check me out at drcindyspeaks.com or send us an email at hello@drcindyspeaks. The book, Positively Altered, Finding Happiness at the Bottom of a Chemo Bag, wherever you buy books, certainly on Amazon. And if you're not tired of listening to me, you can get the audio version as well, because I've read you the story. What I hope is that today, the time that we have spent together, you have learned something, got inspired by something, enjoyed Scott, and at the end, become positively altered.